Welcome back to Tied Up with the Morgans. Today's video is one I have been meaning to make for about 3 weeks now. And it's really, I'm hoping to be a short one. I think I say that every video and I never make it happen. But anyways, today's video is regarding a 717-pound black bear that was killed around, I think the week of Thanksgiving, I don't remember the date. It was towards the end of November. And it was killed by a hunter. He shot it. It wasn't hit by a car or anything. And this was in Moraine State Park here in Pennsylvania, pretty close to me. And I wanted to make a video about this because at the time when I prepared to make this video and did some research, it was all over Facebook, all over the news. It even made like the national news, like CBS News covered it. I think it was on the television, right? I think just on their website they had an article on it, but it made its rounds, especially here in Pennsylvania. At the barber shop, I heard people talking about it everywhere. All over the local news stations, they talked about this bear that was killed. And when you hear that, the comments are flooded with people who think they know better. I hope I don't come off like those people, but I wanted to set the record straight. I'm not an expert, but I tend to know a little bit about conservation, about hunting, habitat management, all of the ecology, these things, how they all have a part. And anyways, that's what I wanted to do today. I wanted to set the record straight on that. 3 weeks late, maybe even a month late, better late than never, I think. So today we're going to talk about this because so many people hated that hunter for doing that. And there's a lot of emotion in that subject where people are really passionate and they think that they know better than, I guess, the state of Pennsylvania, who gives out hunting tags, the Game Commission. And they're not perfect, that's for sure, but we're going to talk about that. So here's our, we're getting off topic a bit, but I got to fix this here. We have these, this is our water system here. Kate did all this. We got a big IBC tote, and we use these things forever. They work great. And then we had to reorder more, and the place we ordered it from, the company, couldn't find them. It's all from China, I'm sure. Anyways, Kate found a different company, and they break all the time. And so we're replacing those. That's what I'm going to do now. But wanted to talk more about these bears. So in Pennsylvania, we have between 15,000 and 20,000 black bears, which is one of the largest populations in the East Coast. It's a thriving population that's growing. Part of that is there's lots of food. They don't have, for the most part, any natural predators. There's no wolves, there's no mountain lions here anymore, but there's a lot of black bears. And there was another one that was leaking here. But anyways, that might be it. So there's a thriving black bear population. There's a lot of food. There's a lot of still forest lots, like woodland areas for them. But did something just drip? Anyways, with that, we have kind of the more bears we have, we can kind of run into some problems. And I know like I said on these Facebook posts, everyone thinks it's as simple as, why would you ever kill a bear? That's awful. Well, it kind of goes back to the deer video when I talked about deer overpopulation. There's a lot of people who don't mind deer hunting. A lot more people are okay with deer hunting than they are bear hunting. And I guess I can kind of see that. I'm not a bear hunter myself. I've never hunted bear. I don't really want to, but I know that there is a place for it and that it's important. Here's those little springs there. These springs just break on them and then it leaks. When they push in on that metal piece, that little nipple there, water comes out and these cheap ones just continue to fall apart. So I think we might have them all replaced now. Let's get back to the black bears. So in the wild, a bear, they have a very high survival rate. They can live 20 to 25 years. And during that time, they're consistently reproducing. So without hunting, those populations aren't going to just level off. They would only keep growing. And that's where hunting comes in. If we're not doing that, we continue to develop, we're going to have more bear-human encounters. They're going to be getting into trash cans more. They're going to be getting into bird feeders more. Maybe having altercations with dogs. There's just a number of things that can go wrong. For the most part, they're just runners, right? They don't really want that problem. But we have a neighbor who has had bird feeders trashed pretty often from bears. So you're going to have more of that. You're going to have more bears getting hit by cars. And that's not good for the bear. It's not good for people. It's not good for the car. So you'll have more of those things happening. And not only that, you're going to run into, if the population continues to grow, they then face a risk of whether it's disease or starvation on years where that wind is cold. It's one of those days where the sun is out. We had a heavy freeze. It was very cold, and it's a very deceiving day. Blue skies and the sun. I thought it was warm. It's not. That's why I'm all bundled up. So I'm getting off topic, but my hands are frozen holding this camera. But what I was saying is you'll run into times where the population's growing. Well, if the oaks all had like a mast year last year and there's tons of food, the next year they don't, there's going to be a lot less food for all of these bears, which is kind of what we talked about with the deer, right? The deer are kind of forced to go into the yards to eat all the ornamentals, things like that. Fortunately for deer, they can eat pretty much anything. But that's the problem we run into. There's a lot more problems the more bears there are, and those populations need to be kept in check. So that's one reason why hunting bear is so important. Without it, that population is just going to keep growing, and that's not going to do the bears any favors. I had to step in my sunroom here, just get out of that wind. It's a little rough out. Deceiving. The sun's nice, but the sun's also setting. So another thing that people don't realize is that bear hunting funds bear conservation. And that's actually funded completely in the state of Pennsylvania by bear hunters. Now I want to read a few things. I made a list of the things when you buy a bear tag, what that money goes towards. That I think a lot of people don't realize. There is no other state funding for this research on bears. It comes strictly from the hunting licenses, the hunting tags for bears. So I have a little list here. Bear license sales pay for den studies, GPS tracking, habitat work, conflict response, research, and the biologists who manage these species. So if the hunting stops, the funding stops. So I think everyone in these Facebook comments who maybe they have good intentions, maybe, no one wants to see something die, right? Even though we won't get into that. But I think they mean well, but they aren't informed. Any research we have in the state of Pennsylvania on black bears is coming from hunters paying for that by buying their tags. And I think that's a very good system that they have in place. We can learn more about the animals. And then when you learn more about them, you can better care for them. Hunters can get a bad rap sometimes. And sometimes it's deserved in some rare cases, right? But for the most part, people do not give hunters enough credit. Hunters are conservationists. Hunters want what's best for the animals, for the whole ecosystem, the whole habitat, all of these animals. And so that's one thing that I think a lot of the people in the comments do not realize. That guy buying that tag helped fund all of those things. So how does a bear get to be 717 pounds? Well, it's a sign of actually a thriving population. That bear lived to an old age to get that size. That's a sign that there's a lot of food, and it's a well-managed population and low predation. So that bear reaching 717 pounds is one of the biggest killed in Pennsylvania. But Pennsylvania consistently produces large bears. And all of that is because there is a controlled population. If they were to remove bear tags and get rid of them, I think we would see more smaller, less healthy bears. That bear that was killed was a very healthy, large, a huge bear. And so that's a good thing. And I think sometimes people are bothered by that. Like, it was so big, why would you kill it? Well, to me, that's a bear that lived a good life, right? He lived a long life. It wasn't, he didn't die in the wild from some disease because there's far too many. He didn't die of starvation. So that's something I think people need to take into consideration. And one thing I think is important we understand too is you don't have to be a hunter to support conservation. Like I said, I myself am not a bear hunter, but I understand that there is a need for it. Maybe one day I will be. I'm just not right now. I'm not interested in it. But I see the important role it has in this ecosystem, that they do need their populations managed, and that the funding comes from hunters. And so I hope people can have a better understanding of that. And I think those of you watching already understand that. I know a lot of this audience gets that and has a good understanding of conservation. So I'm probably speaking or preaching to the choir here. But it is a message I think that everyone can understand, that you don't have to go out and kill a bear to make a difference in this, right? But something that sets that back is harassing a hunter who's out hunting because he's a conservationist, because he loves bears. He's not hunting that bear because he hates them, right? You hunt something that you love because you know what you're doing plays an important role, that these populations do need managed, and they've always been managed. And if not managed, it leads to disaster. So maybe we can think of that the next time, and in a friendly way, when we hear these people condemning a hunter for hunting, for doing conservation work, that it's not as simple as nobody kill the bears, let them live. Well, that's actually going to do more harm than good. Look at the mess we have with deer. We did that whole video on deer. As hunting's declined, the population there's a lot of deer dying off right now, and I did a 40-minute video on that, so we won't get into that today. So seeing an animal of that size killed, it can bring or can cause an emotional reaction. But it's important to not get angry with the hunter, because the good thing of this bear being killed is that it was not taken from like a struggling population of bear, one that's starving, one that's sick. It was taken from one of the healthiest black bear populations in the country. So that's a win in itself, is that we have a thriving population enough to where we can hunt and manage them. And one other thing to remember is that these management decisions are not made by hunters, but made by biologists, people that study these bears, which we had talked about. The funding of the studies comes from the hunters. So I think it's a really good system in place. And I just wanted to make this video, because it was the talk of the town. Everywhere I was seeing it. And I saw a lot of people who do not know much about conservation other than the approach of hands off, let it all be. That's not how it works. And I think if you know anything about conservation, you know that is just not the case. You cannot just leave it all go, because it doesn't work. It does need managed. Whether it's plants, whether it's the wildlife, it all needs managed. And I think us as stewards have a role in that. Anyways, I think that's it for today's video. Probably went longer than it should have, but I hope you get the gist of it. And before we get in some Facebook fights with someone, think about how we can better inform people on these things, and that hunting has a place, and I think it always will.